Hey, it's Stace here from Sacred Art and Story, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make a little clay face that you can use for little spirit dolls, any little project where you need a face, but you don't want to figure out how to make a face from scratch. And this was kind of a game changer for me when I learned how to use a little mold for a face, but then figure out how to alter that little face so that I made it uniquely mine. And that's what I really want for you, because when you have that kind of little twist on whatever you're making, where you kind of put your own energy into it, but you sort of make it yours, you get it to look like something that really reflects what you want, but also kind of has just sort of your style to it. It makes whatever you're creating all the better. So take a look at this, and if you're ever like stressed out about how to create little faces for dolls and things that you're making, I think you're gonna love this. So let me show you how I do it. Okay, so I have some molds here. I've got a few different kinds. So I'll talk about that, and I've got a couple of different kinds of clay. The two that I tend to use, so I'll talk a little bit about that and kind of like what I can do with those and sort of why I choose the ones I choose. But let me talk about the molds first. So these little pink molds are molds that I have gotten from a woman named Maureen Carlson, and I will put the links to her stuff below. But she's an amazing artist. She makes these really adorable little characters out of Fimo or sculpty clay, and I've taken some face making classes from her, but she has these molds that she's created, and they're very nice little molds. They're super easy to use. This is a little one that I have also gotten from her. I use it sometimes, but you can't really alter these once they come out because they're so small and so like delicate. But sometimes I'll use those. But these bigger ones I will definitely use for classes mostly that I'm teaching, where people are making little spirit dolls, and they don't want to have to figure out how to make a face, but then they can take the mold that I've created like this, and then they can come in and they can kind of alter it a little bit. And so I want to show you how to do that too. The other kinds of little molds that I have is I've made a mold from this. Is just you can get it from Michael's or whatever. It's just like a silicone kind of thing, that mold making stuff that you can make. And so you just mix it up and then you put it onto whatever you want to create a mold for. But this was a little face that I made that I wanted to be able to have. So that's kind of a nice little way to do it. But I've also created molds out of just air dry clay. You know, they're not as great as these, but they do work. So I'll kind of show you sort of what I do for all of those. The clays that I like to work with is I mostly will work with paper clay, and I like paper clay because it's easy. You just kind of get it wet. You can blend it really easily. And when it dries, it is really, really hard. So I can then come in and sand it down a little bit if I want to. I could drill a hole in it if I wanted to. Maybe I had a face that, had a space where I could, sew it onto something soft, and I wanted a hole. But the really cool part is that once it's dry, I can also take the paper clay and I can add to it, and it'll stick beautifully. So that's how you can alter some of these little faces. Once they're nice and dry, it's really easy then to come in and change it. And I do this with the classes that I do. Like I said, I just kind of give them a really rough, face like this, and then they can come in and alter it in a way, and everybody loves it, because then they get a face that's really unique, but they didn't have to figure out how to make a face. So that's the one clay. The other clay that I'll use is like this Model Magic. It's really stretchy and gooey, so you can't really do much to it other than sort of stretch it and, maybe add a few little things that you can sort of like stick on. But there's no blending it together, in any way. So it's great for kind of having a flat face that maybe you just want to just play around with a bit. But I'll show you that. So molds. It's great to have some cornstarch. For a really nice mold like this, I don't always use it. I definitely will use it for mine, or for sure these little clay guys, because the clay will stick to the clay and you'll never get your face out. But I just take a little brush and a teeny tiny little bit of cornstarch, and I'm just gonna kind of rub it around in there. You don't need a lot. If it kind of conjures up in there, you know, just like gets all messy in there, it'll get onto the clay, but you can just brush it off. So I just get enough kind of in there to sort of rub it around, and then I just tap it out. So it's just to make it so it's a little bit softer. And then I'll take my clay, so this is paper clay, and you may have to kind of fiddle about just to get the right amount, you know, maybe make one or two and, you know, figure it out. And then I'll roll it into a ball. And it's up to you, like how smooth and, you know, beautiful your little ball will be. I like having a lot of funny little lines and things like that in my faces, because it just adds character. I'm never looking for like a porcelain smooth little, you know, doll face. But you'll kind of rub it around and get it in a ball, and then kind of make a bit of an egg shape. And I've been using this clay a little bit, so it needs a little extra love. All right, so then I'm just gonna kind of make a bit of an egg shape where I'm making a bit of a point in the you know, top of it here. It doesn't have to be a perfect point. It doesn't have to be, you know, even everywhere, but I just kind of get a little pointy. So I have a shape like this. Because what I want to do is I want to take the point, I'm going to put it right in the nose, so I'm sure to get some nose in there, right? And then I'm going to just do a nice even press on this. I don't want to lift the clay out. I want to just kind of keep a nice even press going in there. So if it lifts out and comes back down, then you're going to get a wonky face, and you don't want a wonky face. And then you just kind of do it to the edge here. You know, if you've got more, it's going to be a wider face when you finish, and if you've got less, it'll be a thinner face. But then you just pop it out, and it's that easy. You see some of my cornstarch, I'm just going to kind of brush that off. I can get a little water and do that. But as you can see, I've got some marks in there, and I'm not going to be like, oh, that's a horrible face, I can't use it. I would probably just let that dry, because then I can come in and I can fiddly do with it, because it's paper clay. So once it's dry, you can come in and you can take some sandpaper, just some really, really light sandpaper, sand it down, get rid of all the things around the edges that you don't want. You can also come in and take your clay and add two things. So with paper clay faces, all you do is then you could just get this part wet a little bit, and then you could come in and you could add to it, alter the face a little bit. And I like to do it when it's dry. You could certainly do it when it's wet, but I just find it easier for people when it's dry, because then you can really press on things and you're not taking wet clay and, you know, doing stuff with it, which completely changes the base shape. But I can come in and I can just blend that clay back down right on top. And as long as it's nice and blended, it will stick, it'll stay. So you're just kind of adding to it. And if you have some little tools, you know, that's great, it'll help. But, you know, maybe like a toothpick or a little, you know, paintbrush, where you can use the end of the paintbrush to kind of smooth things out. It just gives you a way to create a face then that's totally uniquely yours, and you can do it differently every time you use the mold, and that way you don't end up with the same doll. And like I said, I do this for classes. You know, it's not, people aren't selling their dolls, and I'm not doing this for dolls that I'm selling either. I'm kind of using my own faces for that kind of stuff. But this is a really great way if you're just, you know, wanting to make some dolls for yourself, where you don't have to start from scratch, and you can do this really, really quickly. Like, look how that's really changed. the face. I mean, just with some higher cheeks, it changes it. You could add a little bit more onto the eyes and that'll change it. I think this was the same face I started with, and I just changed the cheeks and I changed the eyes, and you know, I kind of made it a little bit smaller, and it really can make it so that it looks different, but you don't have to know how to mold a face. So that's one of the things that I really love to do, is to alter the face. You know, you've got this beautiful mold, you can use it just like this, or you can make it your own. The other thing that I'll do, especially when I've got my paper clay, again, because it will stick to itself and it can really, you know, you can do a lot with it. I'll take my, my already dried head, and then I'll add a back to it. So this is a styrofoam ball that was, I think, an inch or an inch and a half. I cut it in half, and I can use that then for the back of the head. And you just can cut it down, or you can squish it down to get it about the right size that you want. This isn't quite right, but we're going to go for it. And all I would do is I would glue this on and let that dry. And then I would come back in and I could get this wet and sort of just get this wet a tiny bit, you know, so that everything will stick. And then you take your clay and then you can make a nice seamless front and back of the head. And again, as long as you get it really nicely blended onto the front, even though it's already been dried, it will work. And it will even come onto the styrofoam. So you can make a really beautiful, fully rounded head then from your mold even. And all you do is kind of come around and fill all that in so it's completely covered in clay. And then you could come in and you could either put a stick in there, you could put a piece of wire in there to attach it to whatever you were attaching, you know, whatever your body was going to be. But you could make and blend and smooth out a really, really just perfect little head. And now you've got a full head from your flat face that you made from your mold. You could then add even more clay on top. Let's say you wanted to make like some kind of a crown, you know, where maybe you stuck some crystals or something up off of that. You could do that. Like, there's so many different things then that you can really start to do, you know, once you have a big fully rounded head as well. So this is sort of the fun part of it all, and this is why I say let it dry before you come in and do it, because I just totally wrecked your cheek. But you know, let it dry, do the next stage, let it dry, and it'll be a really simple way to create the head that you want. Like, look at how different that is already, right? And it just gives you a starting point. Okay. So let's talk about the other kind of clay really quick. So this is my Model Magic. I keep it all, and I keep these all in like baggies where I can really, you know, close it on up. But Model Magic is this clay that, if you've taken my, you've seen the bundle doll class that I have, or the stick doll class, I show you how to make some faces out of this. And basically it stretches and it sticks to itself, and that's kind of all you can do. You don't get it wet, you can't really blend it, but you can make a little face out of it. And you do the exact same thing. I'm just going to roll it in a ball. This might be too much, but for this little mold, again, I'm going to put some cornstarch in there. It's probably too much, but we'll tap it on out. It's probably a lot in there, but again, I don't want things to stick to this. So I will do the same thing. I'm going to make a bit of a point. And I'm going to put that right into the nose area, and then I'll press down. And I've got way too much around the edge, so I would probably start over with less. but I'm gonna just go for it here, and I'm just sort of putting pressure into my little mold and then popping it out. And there I've got a little face. So I could clean this up if I wanted. I can't mold it. I can't put things on the back and blend anything to it, but I could come around with scissors and sort of cut this off if I wanted to, or I might kind of like it and I might leave it. You never know. Like this could be where I could flatten this out a little bit and I could poke a hole in it and I could sew it onto something, or I could just sort of let this be like a back of the head. You know, I could start to do all kinds of things with it, and all I can do is sort of mush and smush and mold this marshmallowy kind of stuff. I can't get it wet and do much else with it. But I could create something like this that then I'm like putting onto something, which is kind of interesting. I could take if I could find it, here it is. I could take a little toothpick or something like this, and I could come in and I could do this. I could do that, you know, with my other doll as well. I always would give them little nose ways to breathe, you know, but I could kind of like come in and poke this around and, you know, maybe kind of lift. You can sort of poke and lift this kind of clay. You can come in and sort of squish, maybe make a little bit bigger nose. I could sort of pull on this and make a longer head. Like all I can do with this is sort of poke, pull, smush, and sort of move it around. But it also could change it up a little bit every time. So if you're using Model Magic, you have fewer options. Like I'm not going to put a back on there. I'm not going to try to blend the front and the back because it would stick if I used paper clay, but it would be a different texture. And then when I went to paint it, it would look funny. So I would keep my Model Magic, excuse me, my Model Magic face as a little flat face, but it's a nice little light face, and so it can stick on something small. But that's kind of an interesting, cute little face too, right? So it would come out of a mold, but I would change it up a little bit every single time. So many ways to use a mold. If you did not have, by the way, if you didn't have a styrofoam ball, you could make one out of aluminum. And just, you know, do that. Kind of form it the way you wanted it, and then just put clay over it. So I just wanted to show you that, you know, if you're worried about faces, start with a mold, and then you could really make it anything that you wanted. And it's a really great way to kind of get started. So you can either use it as is, or you can really change it up, and it's super cool. Okay, so there you go. And hey, I thought I would show you the little head that I was working on earlier and how it actually came out. And I'll probably add some more to it, right? Maybe put a little bit more on the eyes to kind of beef them up a little bit. I could even give her a bit of a neck and then come in and sand things down and smooth things out. But how cool is that? Yeah. That's the kind of thing you can do with a little flat face.